Alright, this is Chat UTD. This week the club announced more cuts to everyday working people. I think it was 200 people to follow the 250 people that lost their jobs before Christmas when we were told that was the last of that type of action. It obviously isn't. I think that's 40% of the workforce that's gone now. More bad publicity for the club, more questions being asked about the dire financial situation we must be in and also how we're going about things. Tonight I'm going to look at INEOS and the Glazers apart and together. I'm going to start the video with that. I'm going to end the video with that. But the main body of the video is going to be talking about the difference between loud complaint and protest, because I would argue that all we've done really since the Glazers took over is loudly complain. I don't think we've actually got to the point of protest, and I've done some research on that, which I'm going to share with you in the main body of the video. Just to break things down between the Glazers and INEOS. My main, objective, wish, that's the word. My main wish as a United fan, more than anything else, is that the Glazers leave our club. When I started this channel nearly 18 months ago, in fact it's more than 18 months ago, that was what it was about. It was talking about the Glazers and wanting them to go, and at the time there was an excitement around because potentially we did have the option that perhaps they would go. And it remains the way I feel now, more than ever, in fact. We are not going to get the Glazers and INEOS out. We may, possibly, ever so slight chance, get the Glazers out, but we're not getting INEOS out as well. So my focus, my energy is I want them gone, first and foremost. The club will still have many, many problems, but that is my be-all and end-all at United, really. The reason I think INEOS won't go with them is twofold. In the eyes of the governing bodies, INEOS haven't done anything wrong with what they've been doing recently. They've absolutely nothing wrong. And they've just invested not long ago £1.3 billion. So there's no way they're going anywhere. The only way it could happen, I think there's a window coming up soon where the Glazers can go to market again and see if anyone's interested in buying the club, and if I think they have to give INEOS first refusal. But if someone comes in with a particularly high bid, INEOS have to match that, or INEOS can be kiboshed. Maybe potentially someone could come in and buy the Glazers shares and work with INEOS. None of that's happening because the Glazers won't put any of their shares up for sale. So that's not happening. So we are stuck with INEOS, but is it possible to get the Glazers out? There's still, believe it or not, sympathisers towards the Glazers. I saw someone the other day saying no one's mentioning the massive increase in revenues that they've overseen. I don't really care. I keep coming back to the same thing. They convert personal debt into club debt, and they convert club money into personal money. When they got £1.3 billion from INEOS, which was as a result of searching for strategic investment into the club, they pocketed all of it. They haven't paid any of the debt that they've put onto the club off with that money, and the club has spent over £1 billion in interest on that debt that they've taken no responsibility for. When they first took the club on, it was okay to do it that way in the eyes of the powers that be, but they still would have done a fit and proper owners test. So at that point in 2005, there was still the chance that the Glazers could be really good owners, despite the sketchy way in which they bought the club. They could have still been good owners. And I reckon probably after about the first 5 or 6 years, they could have blagged, and it would be blagging it, but they could have blagged that they weren't too bad for the club. But that was because Ferguson was there covering the cracks for us. There's no way after 20 years you can say that they've been anything close to good owners, or even fit and proper owners. So despite the fact it was okay for them to take the club on as they did, surely an owner can't get their foot under the table and then just start behaving however they want. You still have to be a fit and proper owner, don't you? So is there an opportunity to kind of say, look, their projected behaviour is irrelevant because we know what they've actually done over the years? And I go back to what I've said many times before, and I know it's a really sensitive analogy, and it's something I've worked with personally in my career as well, is that the Glazers are abusive. They're an abusive owner, and they've abused their power, and that needs to be picked up on. I'm going to move on now to talk about loud complaint versus actual strategic protest for change, and the difference between the two things. Loud complaint isn't completely pointless. Do you remember when the club was linked with Arnautovic, and we'd had a poor start to Ten Hag's first season, and the fans went nuts? There was widespread outrage at the thought of getting Arnautovic, who has a very checkered past, let's put it that way. And the club shit themselves, and they bought Anthony and Casemiro. Now, that wasn't the right thing to do. That wasn't the right way to react. But that reaction, without question, came because of fan sentiment. And it came because of loud complaint from the fans. So it can have an impact, but it has a temporary impact. And that's what's happened over the years with the Glazers. Time and time again, the fans have loudly complained. The Glazers have made temporary changes to their behaviour. I'll go back to the abusive thing. Whenever you see a victim in an abusive relationship start to set some boundaries, or say, I'm off, I'm going, they get the courage to go, the abuser will temporarily change their behaviours. They will breadcrumb, as I mentioned in a video a week or so ago. They will give just enough investment to keep the victim invested, and then when things settle down again, they'll go back to the normal abusive ways. That's exactly what the Glazers do with United fans when we simply loudly complain. So, out of interest, I thought, right, so what does proper protest with the objective of actual change look like? So I did a bit of research. I found a website, the Protest Resilience Toolkit website, and there's a number of different things that lead to change from protest. And it's very different to just loudly complaining or complaining loudly. First and foremost, it requires dynamic spokespeople and influencers who exert influence. We haven't got that. We haven't got anyone leading the protest who is a dynamic spokesperson or influence. I've mentioned that, haven't I, a few times in recent videos. We need that. We need that figurehead. The 1958 have done far more than anyone else, but they don't have a figurehead who's dynamic. They don't have anybody who inspires. And clearly, as they've been around for a few years now, they haven't got what it takes to exert change and to exert influence. So that's a big problem. All the best. So, next thing, set short-term and long-term aims. I don't think we've ever got past the short term, which is the complaining loudly. We've had people getting together in the Tollgate pub, getting pissed up and marching, and getting green and gold flares and things like that. It's never really gone beyond that point. And what I read about a year or so ago, something about fans can get something called protest fatigue. I would replace that at United with loud complaint fatigue, because if you just complain loudly over and over again and nothing changes or seems to be changing or showing any signs of change, you're going to get fatigued by that. And that's as far as we've got to. We've never got past that point. So fans get fed up. You need that next mid-term, long-term goals to say, right, we've caused a bit of disruption, we've let people know about our unhappiness, we've got a few numbers, we're gathering a bit of a community, now we need to do the next thing. Sorry to whack the table. We've never got beyond just the complaining loudly part for me. And whenever they have tried to do something different, like there was, I think, a sit-in at Old Trafford, it was really poorly attended. When there was a don't go into the game for the first 18 minutes idea, again, hardly anyone did it. So we've never got past that first stage. Are there long-term goals? I don't know. It appears not. Long-term aim has to be to get the Glazers out, but you have to have steps towards it, not just this pie-in-the-sky idea of getting the Glazers out and that's it. I'm just going to read this bit out because it's a bit wordy. Elites and governments are often important allies in reform and challenging the abuse of power. I've mentioned, haven't I, about lobbying the government, lobbying the FA, the Premier League. Thinking about elites, that word, that would be perhaps ex-players with a big voice and a big bank account. Maybe it's very financially wealthy United fans, maybe even influential United fans. Get those people on board, because obviously that's going to make a big difference. Have we got that? Probably not. This next one is so important, and I think it's something we're severely lacking: diversity. As in, the protest has to include everybody who wants change. And I don't get that impression. So just as a quick example, when the 1958 first came to any kind of prominence, and it was before the club had put themselves up for strategic investment, there's my air quotes again, they did this call to arms, the 1958, almost like a "your club needs you" kind of posters and stuff on social media, and wanted a petition almost really for people to go on their website and fill in a form and say, come and join us, what can you do? Be on the right side of history, they said. So I was like, yeah, I want a bit of that because I want change, and this is fantastic. People finally seem to be doing something. What can I do? So I went into the website, filled out the form. It kind of asks you what you can and can't do. And I'm self-employed. I've got my own business. I've got 4 kids. I coach a football team, so I don't have tons of time. But I put what I could do, which was still pretty decent. What I could offer. No one even had the courtesy to reply. Now, it seems to me, with the 1958 and the Red Army, if your face fits, you can be part of the protest. If not, you can't. And there's almost a bit of snobbery there, I think. You can't be like that. We have a very diverse fan base, and there's subcultures within our fan base that maybe the typical match-going fans don't like. But if you want the end game that the Glazers are going out, you're probably going to have to inspire a movement of about 1 million people altogether. We've got more fans than 1 million, I think. United got more than 1 million fans worldwide. But you between 500,000 and 1 million people, you're going to have to inspire action from that amount of people, at least. And you're going to have to cover a wide range of people and demographics. And I don't think there's an appetite to do that. You're going to have to. You've got your online fan base. You've got your fan channel fan base. You've got people who watch the United Stand who are largely mocked and looked down upon by match-going fans. You've got people in America. You've got people in Malaysia and China and all over the world who support United. All different demographics, as I say. Are they really including all those people, or are they really just wanting match-going fans? Again, who'll meet in the toll gate, and if your face fits, you can take part, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. There's hardly any diversity in this protest at all, and I think that's a big problem. Strategic partnerships. I think they do all right with that, to be fair. There's the Football Supporters Trust, I think they're called, that they've done some work with. That they're in touch with other clubs. I think actually, bizarrely, they've got quite a good relationship with the Liverpool fans, and that's good. Would it be enough to see change? Probably not. And then the last thing that really stood out to me was you've got to be able to convince people that another world is possible and put forward visionary ideas of change, set the agenda instead of being on the defensive. We haven't got another world we can present to the United fans other than a full takeover with no debt. But who's the person that can give us that? And I think we've had a massive missed opportunity, because in January of 23, when the 9-2 Foundation was first spoken about by Mike Keegan in the Daily Mail, that we're going to blow everyone else out of the water, as he said. That was the other world that was there. That was the opportunity, and far from the protest, if you like, really kicking on from there, the loud complaining stopped at the promise of a full takeover, because it was almost like, we don't need to complain anymore. There's a high chance we're going to get taken over in our entirety by them or by Jim Ratcliffe, which I'm sure the club span that. But that, if you got past the point of loud complaint and you were doing a strategic protest to bring about change, you get in with the 9-2 Foundation. You present them as, this is our option. The reason probably that didn't happen was how many people were opposed to it, because it was Qatar. But that was the other world. Let me just say it again: convince people that another world is possible and put forward visionary ideas of change. It was all there, but it was never jumped upon. If you're looking for protest for change that's strategic, you jump on that and you make the most of it. All we've ever done is loud complaint. And that bit about set the agenda instead of being on the defensive. When we're singing, all I know is Glazers gonna die, and we want Glazers out, and how much we hate them, completely agree. Absolutely, I do hate them. But that's us almost hurting and smarting from the damage and the pain they've caused, and we're on the defensive and saying how much we hate them. You have to go beyond that. Again, that's a loud complaint. You have to go beyond that and set the agenda. This is what we're going to do next. We've told you how much we hate you. We've caused a bit of disruption. Now the agenda is this. This is what we're going to do next. We've never got to that point. And now, in terms of that, convince people another world is possible with visionary ideas. Like what? What world? Everyone knows the virtues of a full sale. Everyone knows the virtues of getting rid of the debt. But who's there to present us with any hope that's going to happen now? There isn't another world, is there? That's it. The chance is gone. And I think, and this links to the diversity, this wasn't something on the website, but you've also, obviously, you've got to bring a lot of people together. You've got to be able to inspire a lot of people. I think quite a few of those things are quite interlinked. And I think one of the big things missing is that dynamic spokesperson. So, for example, with the diversity thing, I could have got that really wrong. I could have misinterpreted the 1958 and the Red Army. I could have done them a disservice by saying that there's football snobbery there and that they only want match-going fans whose face fits. But they need a more dynamic spokesperson who can communicate quite clearly to quash that, because I don't think I'm the only one who feels that way. And they haven't got it. And there's too many things they haven't got within that. I think the only hope we've got is that, I've spoke about it before, the more I think about it, is lobbying government and the FA and the Premier League. It still needs a highly skillful campaign to be able to do that, and it needs people with massive amounts of intelligence and money and time. And it still needs a dynamic spokesperson and a figurehead. But when I look at that criteria for a strategic protest for change, that is very different to what we've been doing and what we're probably going to do this time as well. All United fans have done in the past with the 58 lead in it is complain loudly, and it doesn't get you anywhere. And people get fed up of it because they don't see any chinks of light or possible change in the future. So I don't see a change on the horizon where we can get the Glazers out unless we get help, as I say, from government, Premier League, FA, etc. Just to bring it back round, circle back round to the start of the video and what we're saying there, INEOS and the Glazers. One thing that's very clear to me is INEOS aren't the protectors of Manchester United. They're not going to save us from those big nasty Glazers. They are very much in conjunction and in cahoots with the Glazers. There's no pathway to a full sale or a full takeover. It stands to reason there isn't, because for Jim Ratcliffe it makes no sense whatsoever to go into business with the Glazers and give them a little bit of money, knowing that the only way the Glazers will leave in the next 5 or 6 years is if you double the valuation that was there in 2023 and pay them 10 billion. He's not going to do that. He hasn't got the money to do that. So the only way he stays is to keep in partnership with them. And from the Glazers' perspective, they're not going to sell to INEOS for £5 or £6 billion in 3 or 4 years, something they could have got in 2023. Why would they do that? The only reason the Glazers are hanging around is to keep taking cream off the top, which at the moment they can't do because they can't take dividends and the club's absolutely skint, and or get to a certain point in the future where they think the club's going to be worth much more than it was in 2023, which is why they didn't sell it in 2023, and they know INEOS haven't got that money to pay them £10 billion. So they're a team. They're teamed up with each other. That's obvious. I think people give the Glazers too much credit as if they're decent people who have United's best interest at heart. So someone the other day say, if you think Jim Ratcliffe's going through all this stuff to not have the club in the end, you must be mad. Well, I don't think he's got enough money to buy it for £5 billion. Let's just play devil's advocate and say he did. Which wouldn't happen, but let's just play devil's advocate. So he'd have to take more debt out to buy the club. The original debt that's there won't be paid off, so we'll have even more debt on the club, I imagine. Though he said he wouldn't do that, but he said a lot of things that he's renegaded on. So I think there would be more debt against the club, and even if there's not, any money that they put in, that they have, they would be putting into buying the club. There's not going to be then loads more money to buy players and to do all the things that need to be done. And again, even if they got hold of the club in its entirety. What's their pedigree of success at football? They've not been very good with Nice. I don't think Nice are particularly, the Nice fans are not happy with them. They've been there a few years. It's not been a success story. And forget the cuts and all the abhorrent things they've done, which I suppose they've hid under the guise of, well, we're clearing up the Glazers' mess. I do get that. Yes, they are. Forget that. Their football decision making's been absolutely awful. So, would it be better than the Glazers? Anything would be better than the Glazers. If it was just INEOS, if it was just INEOS that were here and we got rid of the Glazers, yeah, that'd be mint. No, it wouldn't be mint. It would be better. The Glazers not being here would be mint, because I hate them. I don't want them as part of our club. On principle, they shouldn't be here. And a world without them is always going to be a better world than with them. But there is no pathway to a full sale. What's happening quite clearly is the two of them are working with each other, and there is something in the works, quite definitely. There is something in the works, quite definitely. Definitely there is something in the works that will line their pockets, a pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that United won't benefit from massively at all. It's guaranteed. That's what's going on here. So, is it possible to get one half of that out? Is it possible to get the Glazers out? I bring it back to the loud complaint versus strategic protest for change. We have to start strategically protesting for change. And I think this is going to be a reference point video that I'm going to keep coming back to, certainly parts of it that I've referenced here today, because I've never broke it down and looked at it like this before. I've always just used the word protest. We haven't been protesting. We've been complaining loudly. And there's a massive difference. And there's a massive difference in what those two different things can achieve. We have to get better at strategically protesting for change. Glazers out.